Okay, we are live, they're saying.
We're live?
Yes, we are. So it was week 6. Mike was in Oregon for Oregon Ducks versus Cal. Came down to the end, but still Oregon won, which is huge. Um, and for both of us, we had a winning weekend.
Yeah, for sure, 100%.
Winning
I had
weekend.
a
All of our teams won,
yeah.
and yeah, it was good. Now Oregon, even though they lost, they're still in it, right? Or what's the deal there?
To a certain extent, it's unfortunate that Georgia is doing so good this year because it's like if y'all well, actually, I guess if y'all lose to Bama in the SEC title game and that's your only loss,
Yeah.
their only loss is Texas A&M. Both of y'all are getting in. Oklahoma will probably lose to someone, so we'll probably get in over them. The ACC is pretty weak, so we'll get in over whoever wins there.
Yeah.
I think if Oklahoma goes undefeated or loses one game, it's going to be between us and them. And then I also think Ohio State, Penn State, and Iowa are all one-loss teams as well in the Big Ten. So one of those teams might get in, and then Cincinnati is probably going to get in if they stay undefeated. So Oregon is definitely not out,
Yeah.
but I don't like our chances.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
I'm kind of walking on that line. Like I don't think that we're out, but I
Yeah.
don't like our chances either. And honestly, like you want to see your team compete for the title, but at the same time, it's like if we're the number 4 team and we have to play Georgia, or if we're the number 2 team or the number 3 team and we have to play Bama, or vice versa, whatever it ends up being, we're going to get crushed. We will get crushed by either of those teams. I think if we play Bama, or not Bama, but Cincinnati, Oklahoma, Ohio State, if we play any of those teams, we have a fighting shot to get to the title. But it's Bama and Georgia. That's it. That's the championship essentially this year.
Yeah. And that makes it's kind of like what was it, 3 or 4 years ago when Bama and Georgia played each other again in the in the national
And
championship.
Clemson played Bama that year in the semifinal, and everyone was like, "Oh, this is another Clemson Bama showdown, da 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 da, whatever." And I was like, "Doesn't matter. Like that, it's going to be Bama Georgia in the Natty." And
Yeah. That's
well,
what
actually, Oklahoma was really good that year too. I thought Oklahoma had a good shot at beating Georgia, but Bama, it was going to be Bama and Georgia,
yeah,
because
Baker Mayfield versus Jake Fromm, Nick Chubb, and Sony Michelle.
yeah,
Yeah, that was a great game.
That was a heartbreaker for a lot of people.
No, it was, but I was expecting, but it wasn't as bad as when Tua beat us, because that was just like I just fell on my knees. I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?"
Yeah.
But yeah, so a lot of good games this weekend. Not that many, not too many upsets, honestly. There were some great games, including the Dallas game, the Monday night game, the Sunday night game was good. But some teams kind of fell apart, and we're going to start with the first one. Miami loses to Jacksonville, 23-20. It was the early game in the what you would call it in London there. Stats wise, Tua had a 300-yard game, 2 TDs, 1 interception. But here's the other thing right here. So he threw the ball 47 times. They only ran it, I think it was 20 times. So 47-20 ratio. Nothing really to report on that. On the receiving end, Gesicki had a good game, 115 yards. Waddle had 70 yards and 2 touchdowns receiving. On the defensive side, Wilkins had a really good sack. He had a strip sack there that was really good. Agba had a sack. Nothing really there. And then Trevor Lawrence had a 300-yard game, but this was a big game because he didn't throw a pick.
Right.
He did fumble the ball once, but he didn't throw a pick, and he threw for 319 and a passing touchdown. Marvin Jones had 7 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown, and Robinson is starting to get it going with 70 yards rushing and a touchdown and 28 yards. receiving as well, and then Chenault had 54 yards receiving. On defense, the interception was by Lawson, and unfortunately, there were 0 sacks by the Jacksonville Jaguars. Sacksonville is long and gone.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, the Dolphins on a 5-game losing streak, they have to start to get something going. I mean, there's not really a reason to tank. There's nobody in this draft other than the guy that's going to be the number 1 pick, Kayvon Thibodeau. There's no one that's really up here in the draft that's that good. So to say that they're tanking for what? So they need to start getting some wins. I don't think that they have a shot in their division with the Bills there. But just they need to have some dignity. Like, this is crazy, losing 5 straight games. I know you haven't had Tua, but honestly, the gap between Brissett and Tua Tagovailoa is not really that big. So they should have won some games in the past weeks. And this past week with Tua actually not being that bad. He wasn't good, but he wasn't as bad as people were claiming him to be all over the internet. People were saying he was terrible. I don't think he was terrible, but he wasn't the best that he could have been. But they definitely need to win games. And this is a game that they definitely should have won. Trevor Lawrence looks great. I mean, he looked like the number 1 overall quarterback that was drafted in this year's draft. And could it have been a little bit better? Yeah, for sure. You'd like to see him throw for a couple more touchdowns. But he's looked a lot better. Him, Robinson, and the rest of the Jaguars every single week have gotten better and better and better. And this week, it finally led to a W.
Yeah, I mean, it's, the one thing about Trevor Lawrence is that he has decent targets.
Right.
I mean, Chenault is turning into a good player.
A young guy that I think is going to be really good in the future, yeah.
Marvin Jones Jr., I love the way he looked in the preseason, so I thought he was going to use him. And they need to feed off their running back. I mean, Robinson is a good running back. He's not many people talk about him, but he should be up there, in some talks about a guy who's solid for the team and, go from there. Anything else you want to say about this game or?
Man, I really hope that Tua can figure it out because I like Tua. I think he's got great potential. He had a decent game, but if he can stop getting injured and just play better, then he's got a bright future. I don't think that the Dolphins really gave him time to develop or time to heal from his injury.
Yeah.
And that's hurting him a lot. But since he's the starter now, I mean, he has to be the starter. So I hope he can pick it up because, man, I think that the Dolphins have honestly failed him thus far by last year making him the starter over Fitzpatrick towards the end of the season. So hopefully he can pick it up, though, man.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. Next game, but before we get into the next game, listen, the Dolphins, never been a fan of Tua. I'm not a person that wants to see anybody do bad.
Right.
But I did not think he was a top 5 pick. I didn't think he was a first round pick.
Really?
I would be totally wrong at the end of the day, but I was just a guy that gets hurt too much. He's a left-handed quarterback where
he's not really great at anything. I mean, he's a good quarterback, but he's short. He's not athletic, and he's not insanely accurate. When you think of short quarterbacks, they're all athletic.
Yeah.
He's not really an athlete, and he's not the most accurate guy either. So Drew Brees is the only non-athletic short quarterback, but he was insanely accurate. Tua's not that guy.
And the statistics of left-handed quarterbacks is not good.
Aren't great.
Successful left-handed quarterbacks is not very good. So, but hey, he's still got some time to prove himself, and we'll see what happens.
And I hope he does.
On the next game, we got the Bengals dominate the Lions, and it's sad because the Lions played such a tough game last week against the Vikings, but then they're at home against Cincinnati, and they don't score to the fourth quarter. That's when they scored all their points, which is unfortunate, and the Bengals won 34-11. On the statistics side, for Detroit, Jared Goff had 202 yards and an interception. DeAndre Swift had 24 yards rushing, 43 yards receiving, and 3 passing yards. Don't forget about that. And a rushing touchdown. Hawkinson had 74 yards receiving, and St. Brown had 26 yards receiving. On the defensive side, you had Akwara had a sack. And oh my God, this name right here is brutal. Oruwariye.
I'm not even going to try. I knew the last one, Okwara, but
Akwara,
I'm not even
but
going to try on that one.
Wukawari had the interception. And then on the Cincinnati side, Joe Burrow had himself a good game. 271, 3 touchdowns and an interception. Joe Mixon ran for 98 yards and received for 59 and a receiving touchdown. Jamar Chase continues to be the offensive rookie of the year, in my opinion. 4 catches, 97 yards. Then we had Evans had a receiving touchdown, and so did Uzumwa, the tight end for Cincinnati there. On the defensive side, they had sacks by Hendrickson and an interception by Wilson. So not gaudy stats, except for Burrow and Chase continue to be awesome.
Yeah, that's a dynamic duo that's really clicking. It really felt like at the beginning of this game, and I mean the beginning, like the first quarter and a little bit of the second quarter, it felt like the Detroit defense was going to be able to keep this close. But Burrow and the Bengals offense just took off late in the second quarter, right before the first half ended. Mixon and Chase both balling out in this game. Great game for the Bengals. It is sad to see the Lions continuing to lose and lose. I think they're the only team in the NFL left that hasn't won a ball game yet since the Jaguars just won. The Lions are just bad. Cincinnati's defense never let Goff have enough time to really get anything going. He really just, even on the passes where he did have some time to get things going, he didn't get things going at all. But overall, just a good win for Cincinnati. Good to see them actually winning some ball games. This is a team that might end up making the playoffs. They have a better record than the Browns right now. And granted, the Browns have had a tougher schedule, which I'll like to get into that later. But the Bengals have a real shot at the playoffs here, especially with how weak the rest of their division is. I'd be on the lookout for that for sure. But yeah, man, real sad to see the Lions lose. But hey, at least it isn't a heartbreaking lose by 3 game again. So
yeah, but you know what? It's weird how they're not showing up for a coach that will go to war with them. And it just makes me unhappy to see that, because that coach wants to be the coach of the Bengals. It just seems like the rest of them are being kind of divas, and I don't know. It just, the Lions have just been so snake bitten, even when Matthew Stafford was there.
Right.
And it's just like, when is that organization going to turn around? But,
that's a tough question to ask, because I don't know. It's really, it honestly feels like they're a lost cause, which is sad to say. I mean, like, I'm 20 years old. I'm hoping that before I die, I see the Lions win a Super Bowl with Dan Campbell, hopefully, as the head coach. But yeah, hopefully they can figure things out. It's not going to be this year or next year, obviously, but soon, hopefully soon.
I think that, but I also think that Dan Campbell is the answer. It's just maybe he needs to get in some guys that are his, because there still are some contracts there, like Trey Flowers and stuff like that, that's there from the Matt Patricia regime. But, we'll see what happens. For the next game, I just want to look at the comments here. I'm sorry about seeing my finger. I'm working through my phone here because my computer wouldn't turn on. But Nate S says, nice win for the Raiders. Glad the Cowboys were able to beat the Patriots. We'll be talking about those games. BT Whit Mason said the Cardinals destroyed the Browns. And Victor Bowker says, I hope the Bengals choke when they play the Raiders. And we'll see. It's going to be a tough game no matter what. And BT Whit Mason says, how do you feel about the 49ers? They didn't play this game this week. So honestly, they're moving and they're playing good games. And the thing is, their biggest question mark is their quarterback. And do they do well with the quarterback? Do they not? With Trey Lance or Jimmy Garoppolo, I just think it's they're up in the air right now. I'd say they're up in the air. I don't know what you feel about them, but I think they're not great. They're not bad, but they're not,
Yeah, with them having a bye week, it's kind of like I don't really know where I stand. We're so early into the season. I mean, they've only played 5 games. So I don't know. I think they're good. They can make the playoffs.
They can definitely make
that division. They are not winning that division.
No, they're not winning that division whatsoever.
I did not realize.
Speaking of teams that aren't going to win the division, that's a little pun there. The Chiefs, because they're not going to win their division. Damn right. The Chiefs
and Washington
football team in Washington, 31-13. Washington scored all their points in the first half. They were up 13-10 going into the third quarter, and then they did nothing. And then, the Chiefs did what they had to do. Patrick Mahomes threw for 397 yards, 2 touchdowns, but still 2 interceptions and a fumble. But he didn't lose it, but he still fumbled. Darren Williams had 62 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns and 27 yards receiving. On the receiving side, Travis Kelce had 99 yards receiving. Tyreek Hill had 76. Hardman had 62. Robinson had 46 and a touchdown. On the defensive side, the team had no sacks. That's crazy to think that they had no sacks in this game. And Wharton had their interception. On the other side, Heinowski, as I like to call him, even though it's Heineke or whatever, he had 182, 1 passing touchdown, 1 interception. McKissick had 45 yards rushing. Gibson had 44. McKissick also had 65 yards receiving, so he had over 100 total yards. He was their leading receiver, and Seals Jones had 58 yards and a touchdown. On the defensive side, Holcomb had a sack. Chase Young had a sack. Toohill had a sack. Fuller and McCain both had interceptions. So, listen. You know what? I don't want to say what's wrong with the Chiefs. It's just that the Chiefs aren't playing great right now.
Right.
They're not.
Yeah. I mean, as far as Washington goes, they are in a rough spot. This team, obviously the defense did a little bit better. They had a good first half. Good first half overall for the Washington football team. They just could not hang for long. The one thing that really pops out from early on this season, and especially in this game, is that the Chiefs are no longer a juggernaut football team. I mean, let's be honest. Like, they're a good team. We're still going to expect them to win games and make the playoffs, and they'll probably be the best wild card team in the playoffs. But this Chiefs team is not expected to win every single game anymore. I mean, people were talking about this team as going undefeated. Everyone was thinking this team was going to be undefeated this entire year, or it was eventually going to happen where they would be the next Patriots to go undefeated all the way to the Super Bowl or whatever. But this Chiefs team, it just isn't it anymore. Mahomes is still good and a great talent, but the Superman bullshit just has to stop. I mean, you saw him. He fumbled the snap, picked it up, kind of rolled out to the right, and then just tossed it in. Like, he can't keep doing it. And I've been saying that all season long. I've been saying this Superman crap, the taking the games into my own hands, I'm the magic man, this and that for Patrick Mahomes has not worked. Still hasn't. And it's not going to work ever again, I don't think. This season we're showing that it's just not working.
As a Raiders fan, I have no love for the Chiefs. I just don't.
Right.
And the one thing that is going to start hurting the Chiefs is that the contracts are going to start coming up. They're not going to be able to pay players. I can see Tyreek Hill leaving for sure. I think they'd rather pay, Kelce than Tyreek Hill if I had to guess. But honestly, you're right. And as a Raiders fan, this division's up in the air, and it's because the Chiefs are back to normal. Not normal. They're still a very good team.
Yeah.
But they've shown that they are human. And, they're not the shoe-in to win the Super Bowl. They're not a shoe-in to win their division. Patrick Mahomes is a great quarterback, but he's not the best ever or anything like that. He is right now, and I would hate to say it, with Justin Herbert in the division, he is struggling with Justin Herbert who's the better quarterback.
Right.
And it's just, we'll see what happens.
And you know that they're still throwing him in MVP conversation every single week. They still say he's an MVP candidate.
But that's the same thing they do with Rodgers. They'll do it with Brady. It's just the better quarterbacks are always going to be in the mix because of who they are.
Right.
And that's the thing. the MVP, in my opinion, hands down, should be Kyler Murray right now.
Yes.
Because he's playing very well and his team is undefeated. When his team loses, then it might change. But, they haven't lost yet, so he's the MVP. On the Washington side, their season ended when Fitzpatrick got hurt. Yeah. Because their defense had so much hype coming in. They haven't done shit. And, their offense is just with Hynoski, as I like to call him. He's just having trouble. So, good win for the Chiefs to get to 500. And unfortunately like I said, for Washington, football team fans, it's just, I get it. I've been in the same situation before as a Raiders fan. Yeah. Quick comment thing by Leo H. I love this one. Big Tuna, Raider Nation for life. History is repeating itself. The Raiders are going back to the Super Bowl after getting rid of Gruden once again. That's right. I wore a Super Bowl ring to the broadcast, dude. 1976. Fred Biletnikoff, MVP. Was not alive for it, but I'll still wear the ring. Nate S says the only good news for Washington is that the cap season has started.
Oh, Caps.
Whit Mason says Kyler Murray should be him for sure. Kyler Murray should be the MVP for sure. Right now, yeah, he should. Next game we had a little bit of a surprise here. The Vikings go into the Panthers and beat them in overtime, and I think we talked about the Panthers needed to get better, and they put up 28 points. But I read a lot of headlines that Sam Darnold just is not getting it done, and for them to lose in overtime, it's a rough game. But Sam Darnold was 17 for 41, which means he was like 40% completion percentage, 207 yards, 1 passing touchdown, 1 interception. He was sacked 4 times, but he also rushed for 48 yards. Chuba Hubbard, love that name, 61 yards rushing with a touchdown. On the receiving side, Moore had 73 yards, and Robbie Anderson had the touchdown. Ian Thomas had 1 catch for 41 yards. On the defensive side, the got 0 sacks and 0 interceptions, so nothing to really talk about there. For the Vikings, Kirk Cousins had a great game, 373 and 3 touchdowns. Dalvin Cook back and better in action, 140 yards and a touchdown. Thielen had 126 and a touchdown. Osborne had a touchdown. Herdon had a touchdown, and Jefferson had 80 yards receiving, and Conklin had 71 yards receiving as well. On the defensive side, Watts had a sack, Kendricks had a sack, Barr had half a sack, Lynch had a sack, and Rashad Breeland, man oh man, a name from the past, had himself an interception. So yeah, listen, Kirk Cousins had a great game. And Dalvin Cook looked great,
Yeah, Kirk Cousins did have a great game, and in my mind, he's an MVP sleeper. Now, I don't think he should be in the conversation, but I think more people should start to realize that this guy, Kirk Cousins, is having a great year, and if other guys start to slow down and Kirk Cousins doesn't, this guy could be in the running for it. As far as the Panthers go, I definitely think that we crown them way, way too early. This team was 3-0. I was giving them nicknames. I was giving them praise. I was saying this team is great. This and that, yada, yada, yada. They're not that good. They're just not that good. I definitely think that they have a shot to make the playoffs still. I don't predict them to make the playoffs anymore. Darnold wasn't great, and he wasn't really bad later in the game. Obviously, he did not have a great percentage or completion percentage, like you pointed out, but he started to kind of get things going a little bit later. It was a slow, boring first half for both of these teams. It was explosive and fun in the second. But the Vikings, they got the close win and a much-needed win. This team is probably going to make the playoffs with all these close wins that they get. It's going to be exciting to see. I think that they might even give the Packers a run for their money in the games that they go head-to-head. I still think the Packers have the division easily. But watch out for the Vikings. I think that they can make the playoffs.
They got a chance because, like you said, they're winning the close games. They're 3-3. They're not going to win the division with the Packers there, unfortunately, but they can definitely fight for a wild card. The one thing, and I was like, man, why is he saying that Kirk Cousins is an MVP thing? Listen, Kirk Cousins has thrown 13 interceptions or 13 touchdowns to 2 interceptions, and people have always said that he's an interception machine. Not this year. Right now, through 6 games, he's thrown 13 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and almost 1,800 yards. Nothing wrong with those numbers there. They got to start winning more games, and then his name will get put up the list more and more.
But I think he's definitely on his way for sure.
But also too, with Dalvin Cook on the field, they're a better team, and it's just that's it. They're just a better team, and they just make a difference. Listen, when I worked for Pro Football Focus, talking about the Panthers, I did 2 USC games, and I did not understand why people were saying this kid was the first overall pick. I still don't get it. Why people think he's good in Darnold, but you know what? I'm not a scout. So, but like I said, I did 2 games on him. He was throwing balls the way he threw balls in games now, where he's throwing it right to the other team.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens. But Carolina just seems like they shouldn't have got rid of Bridgewater, but that's just me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's just whatever. But moving on, Houston goes to Indianapolis and gets the shit kicked out of them, 31-3. Not much to really talk about in this game, except for the return of T.Y. Hilton. He's back in action.
That made me happy.
Davis Mills had 243 and 2 interceptions. Mark Ingram had 73 yards rushing. Brandon Cooks had 89 yards receiving. On the defensive side, Grenard had 2 sacks, and there was no interceptions and no more sacks. Carson Wentz had 223 and 2 touchdowns. Jonathan Taylor had a great game. He only had 14 carries, but he had 145 yards and 2 touchdowns. Obviously one of his runs went for 80 yards. But still, averaging 10 yards a carry is not bad at all. T.Y. Hilton came out of the IR to be the leading receiver, 80 yards. Campbell had a receiving touchdown. Ollie Cox had a receiving touchdown. Pittman had 35 yards receiving. On the defensive side, Willis and Buckner both had sacks, and Leonard and Rodgers both had interceptions. Listen, I think the Colts have a chance to be better now because T.Y. Hilton is back. I really do. And people might say, well, they should have been good anyway. No, because they didn't have their number 1 receiver.
Yeah, I agree. One of the things about the Colts is they have had a really tough schedule up to this point. I think that's why the record is the way it is. I don't think that their record really represents who they are as a team. They're a much better team than their record. In this game, Carson Wentz was absolutely slinging the ball to all of the Indianapolis weapons. I mean, tons of guys were getting a bunch of love, and they were just clicking. The young stars, Jonathan Taylor and Micah Pittman, is it Michael or Micah Pittman? I know one of them is on the Ducks. I think that one's Micah, and I think
Michael Pittman. Yeah,
Michael Pittman's on the Colts. He was pretty good early in that game. Didn't really have a ton of yards, but obviously Jonathan Taylor absolutely balling out in this game. I was happy to see that as somewhat of a Wisconsin Badgers fan. The Colts defense just put way too much pressure on Davis Mills, which led to picks and sacks for the W. The Texans, they're just going to lose a lot, and they're going to continue to lose a lot. So good win for the Colts. I think it kind of shows their dominance. Like, hey, we're a good football team. We'll show you what it looks like when a good football team plays a bad football team. If they were to barely win this game, I think we could be saying different, but they showed how good they were by flexing their muscles all over this bad team.
Yeah, it was not good. I've lost so much respect for Deshaun Watson that this is a team that brought him in, have given him extensions, given him money, and he won't play. I mean, this team is horrible without him. I mean, it's just bullshit that he's just sitting on the sidelines. I don't get it. But
sitting at home, nothing house, doesn't even have to worry about the team, and yeah.
That's the thing is that he's not getting in any trouble either. So he's just sitting at home.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I've lost a lot of respect for him. And if I was a player, I'd be like, why would I want to play with this guy?
No, I
Because
wouldn't want to play with him.
he would just quit.
And what's
So
crazy is he's a top 5 talented quarterback. I mean, he's top 5 in terms of talent. When we talk about quarterbacks in the NFL, I stand by that, and I will. That's a hill I'm willing to die on. This guy is an insanely talented quarterback.
I agree.
I don't know.
It's just weird that he can let a team that selected him and has given him an extension and all that stuff, and he won't play. I don't get it.
A big old payday too.
Huh?
A big payday too.
Yeah, I don't get it. The Rams traveled to New York and kicked the shit out of the Giants. The Giants did have a lead in the first quarter. It was 3-0 going into the second quarter, and the Rams scored 28 points in the second quarter. Matthew Stafford continues his MVP ways, throwing for 251, 4 touchdowns, and an interception. Henderson had 78 yards rushing with a touchdown and 29 yards receiving and a touchdown. Sony Michel, just to say his name because he was a Bulldog, had 42 yards rushing. Cooper Kupp continues to play, I'll say it, at an MVP level. Yeah. 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. Robert Woods had a touchdown. On the defensive side, it was just a fucking – it was just so bad. Because I was at work and that game was on. I was watching a bunch of games at once and just kept on turning on the Giants game. And either Daniel Jones was on the ground or throwing interceptions. Leonard Floyd had a sack and a half. Lewis had a sack. Aaron Donald had half a sack. Oh, my God, this name too. Okoronkwo had a sack. Rapp had 2 interceptions, and Rochelle had an interception as well. On the Giants side, not much to say here. Daniel Jones threw for 242 and 3 interceptions. Penny had a rushing touchdown. Shepard had 10 catches for 76 yards. Tuna had 3 catches for 36 yards, but now he's hurt. He's actually turned into a decent receiver in the last few weeks, and now he's hurt. And no one did anything else, honestly, on the offensive side. Leonard Williams, he has played his ass off, in my opinion, and not gotten any respect whatsoever because he's on the Giants. But, it's just something where, he's still playing tough, even though the team is bad, and I respect that a lot. He had a sack and a half. Lawrence had a sack. McKinney had 2 interceptions because the backup threw an interception as well for the Rams. And that is about it. I mean, not much to say about this game except for the Rams continue to roll and the Giants continue to fold.
Yeah, things really did get out of hand in that second quarter when the Rams absolutely took off. Kupp and Stafford were balling out, going all out against these Giants. I mean, they had no mercy for this New York team. Daniel Jones, he got hurt last week. I mean, he was stumbling on the field, bad concussion, this and that. I can't believe they let him play this game. And he really didn't do him any favors. Like you said, he had picks. He was getting sacked, this and that. The Giants, in the end, they were just no match for this top-tier offense and defense that the Rams have. Yeah, nothing really to say about this game. Total blowout, really ugly loss for the Giants.
The Stafford and Kupp continue to be MVP-type players, all-pro-type players right now. Just rough to see it. The Giants are just all New York teams except for the Bills are just having a tough time right now in the NFL. Moving on to, I think, the biggest surprise of the weekend is the Ravens dominated the Chargers 34-6. Yeah,
it was bad.
It was bad. Justin Herbert threw for 195, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He was sacked twice. They ran the ball a total of 12 times for 26 yards total. That's not going to do it. So no one really to report there. Keenan Allen had 50 yards. Mike Williams had 27 yards. Jared Cook had a receiving touchdown. On the defensive side, you had Bosa get himself a sack. You had an Oso get himself a sack. Joseph got himself a sack, and that is Linval Joseph, if anyone wants to know. And Derwin James got an interception, and so did I apologize. Kazir White had 2 interceptions. So the Chargers defense got picks and stuff like that, but wait a minute, that can't be right. Hold on. No, I'm sorry. Derwin James had 1 interception and White had 2. So one of them, they must have had a trick play where someone threw a pick. I did not see that in the highlights, but probably later in the game.
Yeah.
On the Baltimore side, I mean, honestly, looking at the stats, it doesn't look like they were dominated.
Yeah.
Because Lamar Jackson threw for 167, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. He was sacked 3 times. He ran it for 51. Devontae Freeman had a rushing touchdown. Latavius Murray had a touchdown, and so did Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell had himself a touchdown as well, which is pretty cool. I'm not going to lie to you. That's good to see him kind of back.
Yeah.
And then on the receiving side here, Andrews had 68 yards and a touchdown. No one really did anything else. So yeah, it was weird. It was just a weird game where it really wasn't big stats wise. There was 3 rushing touchdowns by the All-Pro team from 2013. Tavius Murray, Devontae Freeman, and Le'Veon Bell. On the defensive side, Elliott had a sack as well as Houston, and Elliott also had an interception. So yeah, weird game. Justin Herbert had a rough time in this game.
Yeah, it was a really rough game for Justin Herbert, who a lot of people, including me, consider this guy in the MVP conversation. And I still do to a certain extent, even though he's had this really bad game. Lamar Jackson even wasn't great in this game. He had the 2 picks. He did run pretty good, 51 yards. Not too shabby, but not a good game for Lamar Jackson. The Chargers, they just couldn't get it going. They had no spark in their offense, and they kind of looked like the Packers did week 1 against the Saints, where it's like, you're a good team playing a team that's also pretty good, and it's not that you're bad or you had a bad day. They just didn't have any spark. They didn't get it going ever in this game. The Ravens offense overall wasn't too bad. Their defense just made it really hard for Justin Herbert to get loose and get it going. Big blowout win for the Ravens.
I just can't believe the Ravens are 5-1, and the only loss they have is to the Raiders, which is just kind of funny.
Yeah.
Because
I didn't realize that they only had 1 loss either, and it was week 1.
Yeah, they just seems to me they haven't been playing that good, but they've been winning, and that's all that matters in the NFL is they're getting W's, and that's going to be an interesting race because I do think Pittsburgh is not going to be in it at the end of the year, but between Cleveland, Cincinnati, and Baltimore, I know Baltimore and Cleveland are probably going to pull away from Cincinnati, but still, that's going to be a very interesting race. One of those 2, maybe 2 out of those teams might not make the playoffs, which is sad, but that's part of the playoffs that sucks.
Yeah.
All right, so we only got some night games to talk about, so let's talk about our games. The Green Bay Packers go into Soldier Field and smack the shit out of Justin Fields and the Bears. Justin Fields threw for 174, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, ran for 43 yards. Herbert ran for 97 yards and a touchdown. Allen Robinson had 53 yards receiving. Mooney had 1 receiving touchdown. On the defensive side, Quinn, Mack, and Hicks all had sacks, and there was no interceptions. On the Packers side, Aaron Rodgers did what he did. He owns the Bears, as he told people on air. He fucking owns them. He threw for 195, 2 touchdowns, ran the ball for 19 yards and a touchdown. Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon are starting to turn into a nice dynamic duo. 76 yards and 59 yards. Devontae Adams, a little bit of a light week for him. 89 yards receiving. Aaron Jones and Lazard both had receiving touchdowns. On the defensive side, Lowry had 1 sack, Clark had 2, Garvin had 1, and Savage had just a bonehead interception, but it was still an interception. I don't know if you get to watch the game live?
Yeah, I got to watch the game live.
I know you were in Oregon, but still.
Awesome. It was awesome. It was like 10 in the morning when it started.
Oh, did it really? Oh, yeah. So, yeah.
On the West Coast, it was 12 o'clock. I was like, this is weird. Watching
Is it better? Do you like that more than?
It's weird. I can't really say because if I was if I was in the comfort of my own home, because I'm an early riser, wake up at 8, have 2 hours to eat breakfast, take a shower, get ready for the game, then watch it at 10 a.m., that would be great. But being in a different environment, just kind of going to the bar to watch the game and then having to catch a flight literally hours later, it's really hard to tell. But I mean, it's fine playing early and winning early. I mean,
yeah.
But I think that I think the answer would be yes if it was if I was like the comfort of my own home.
Yeah. So Packers won pretty easily. I mean, your thoughts are what's most important, but I think that I like the maturation of A.J. Dillon throughout the season. Aaron Jones, I thought, could have had an off year because he got paid, and usually that's what happens. But hey, everyone's playing good right now.
Yeah, I think the Packers look really, really good. They showed how good that their defense is, honestly. I mean, in this game, the defense did play really good. They put the pressure on Justin Fields. He actually wasn't terrible, but he wasn't good either. He's kind of in the mix of like bad and good, somewhat in that area. The Bears showed just how good that their defense was, putting this high-powered Packers offense, only letting them score 24 points. Not really a blowout, but it was never in doubt. It felt like the Packers were going to win this game from the jump, even on that first drive when they ended in a punt. But Aaron Rodgers, the bad man, Green Bay Packers quarterback, he's a State Farm actor. He's the Jeopardy host. And guess what? He also is the owner of the Chicago Bears. So what can't he do? What can't he do?
Still an MVP, in my opinion.
Oh, 100%. And if this is his last game as a Packer going to play Chicago, I'm glad that we won, and I'm glad that he got to let the fans know who he is. I'm glad
The Bears are going to win some more games because of their defense, like they did against the Raiders and stuff. But
yeah,
the Packers are the class of the division, of the division. So they're just going to keep humming along. They're going to have a bad game here or there, but
yeah.
And this game wasn't the greatest stats wise.
No, it wasn't. I mean, our offense struggled a little bit. Yeah,
yeah, that's all that matters, and that's huge. So Raiders 7528. He asked if what's all the Raiders news I missed today. You didn't miss anything except for the Raiders did well in the game, but they did sign today. They signed Desmond Trufant, who is not a terrible cornerback. He's injury prone. I did do a video about it if you want to go back in the channel and look. We've got a lot of injuries in the defensive side with Trayvon Mullen and Damon Arnett being out. But so they did sign Desmond Trufant, who is, I don't know what you would think, Mike. He's he's a name.
He's a guy that, I mean, it doesn't hurt that he's on your football team.
No, but here's the funny thing, dude, is that Casey Hayward Jr., according to Pro Football Focus, is the number 1 cornerback in the league. Jair's number 2.
That's weird.
But Casey, no, because he's had 265 snaps on the thing, hasn't allowed a touchdown.
Huh.
And Jair allowed 1 in the first week.
Yeah. Huh.
So by great, as a Raiders fan, you would never think a cornerback would be, but I knew that signing was good, and okay. Victor Bowker also says that from the practice squad, they lost the center that they drafted this year in the 7th round to the Houston Texans. I had high hopes for him too, but unfortunately, next year the team's going to look totally different. So there's some pieces that have been there that are going to stay there, but there's going to be a lot of draft picks by John Gruden and Mike Mayock that are not going to be there next year.
Yeah.
It's just not going to be there. But let's move on to the game. I hate to say this, but the top was torn off the Raiders' offense, and they dominated on offense. They did really well on defense. They did allow 24 points, but a lot of it was garbage time. Derek Carr threw for 340. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's start with Denver first because they were the loser. That's right. They were the fucking loser. Teddy Bridgewater threw for 343, 334, 3 passing touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He was sacked 6 times, which was just awesome. Williams and Gordon combined for 103 yards rushing. Noah Fant had 97 yards receiving and a touchdown. Sutton had 94 yards receiving and a touchdown, and Patrick had 42 yards and a touchdown. On the defensive side, Jackson and Callahan both had sacks, and there was no interceptions. A lot of these stats are from garbage time. I wish that they could just change the stats and be like, oh, well, they allowed so much, but most of it was because the Raiders were up 31-10 at one point.
Right.
You know, and a lot of stuff, every team does it. They just let teams come back into it. On the Raiders side, they had, it was, no, that's what I said. It was 6. No, wait a minute. No, it was 5 sacks because they took the one away from Crosby. Thank you, Barber Raider. Because they would have had 6 sacks, but they said that Bridgewater made it back to the line of scrimmage, or else it would have been 4 sacks for Crosby for that game. Carr threw for 341 and 2 touchdowns. Jacobs ran for 53 and a rushing touchdown. Kenyon Drake kind of came out of his shell with 34 yards rushing and a touchdown, 39 yards receiving and a touchdown. Henry Ruggs, in my opinion, has turned in one of the biggest turnarounds from year 1 to year 2 this whole season. He has just turned into a great receiver. I mean, it's crazy to say that because he was not great last year, but he has totaled everything out from he did last year to this year. He's top 15 in receiving yards. He had 97 yards and a touchdown. Kenyon Drake had the receiving touchdown. Brian Edwards had 67 yards. Waller had 59. Renfro had 36. On defense, Corey Littleton had half a sack. Max Crosby had 3 sacks. And Quentin Jefferson had 1. So they didn't give the other half a sack to anybody, I guess. Jonathan Abram, Nate Hobbs, and Fassan there, and Morig all had interceptions, which is wrong. They did not have 4 interceptions. I don't know where that came from, but whatever. Because he only threw 3. Unless there was a trick play I missed while I was working.
Yeah.
They're saying that Hobbs had an interception too. I do not remember seeing that. But who knows? But overall, listen, Raiders fans, the top has been taken off the defense. John Gruden not being there, the coach is going to let the offense do what they do. Gus Bradley's going to be allowed to do pretty much whatever he wants to do on defense, and he's shown that Broncos really aren't that good. But if you think about it, Henry Ruggs, Brian Edwards, Hunter Renfro, Darren Waller, that's a pretty good foursome of receivers. Maybe not top 10, but I would like to compare those 4 receivers to any other 4 receivers and see where they land, because all those guys have potential to break it for a long touchdown. And with Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake, you know, those last 2 games against the Bears and the Chargers, you know, it's just the Chargers are a good team. We all know that. The Bears really weren't. But overall, for this team to win after all the shit that's happened just shows how mentally tough they are, in my opinion. And Derek Carr, all those guys prove that they still want to be there. They still want to be on the team. So just continue to play like you are. Yes, we are going home to play the Eagles, and the Eagles could be a little bit scary for us because that's just against running quarterbacks. We never do a great job. But if they play like they did this week, everything's going to be fine. The Eagles are not that good, and the Raiders are literally in a division fight right now. They're tied for the division right now. Los Angeles would have the tiebreaker, but right now, listen, as a Raiders fan, they could have lost, and I would have gave them all the excuses in the world. Everyone would have, but they came out and they won, and that just shows how mentally tough they are, in my opinion. And like I said, that offense, for them to, you know, for them to, yeah. I mean, it's just like if you're guarding Ruggs, that's great. We'll throw it to Edwards. If you're guarding Edwards, we'll throw it to Renfro. And oh yeah, we have one of the best tight ends in the league too. It's just like Derek Carr should continue to be up there in stats all year if the coach is going to let them. And it looks like he does. He's going to just be like, just go out and have fun. And it seems like that's what they're doing.
Yeah, the Raiders, they did look really good. Henry Ruggs is absolutely the man. Like you were saying, this guy had a great leap from year 1 to year 2. He's played great this year. What's his name? Derek Carr is definitely doing what he needs to do. He, like you said, has all these weapons that he's throwing to. Both teams scoring on the first drive. I thought this was going to be a close, high-scoring, exciting game, but it really just didn't turn out that way. The Raiders dominated on defense. The Broncos honestly just got a little stagnant after they scored that first touchdown of the game. They had a good comeback effort with some garbage time, but it was just way too little and way too late. Good win for the Raiders, though. Good win for the Raiders. They look good. This is a playoff team. It's going to be up to them because they've got a good record, and with the distractions pretty much gone, right? The distraction that happened, Gruden, even before he left, it was kind of a distraction whenever all these emails were coming out, this and that. But now that he's gone and they know that they can win without him against a good Broncos team, maybe not a good Broncos team, but a decent Broncos team at home, or I guess in Denver, this is a good Raiders team. They can make the playoffs if they want to.
If they want to. And like you said, there's injuries right now that's hurting them on the offensive line, but the offensive line did an okay job, especially against Von Miller. I mean, Von Miller's still out there.
Von Miller's name wasn't announced but like 3 times, I think. Like, he did not.
No, but that means that Colton Miller did a good job on him, you know. And I believe Bradley Chubb is not playing this year because he's hurt, if I had to guess. But maybe he is. I didn't see him at all, you know. But you know, they bring in a guy like Trufant to help out with the veteran leadership, and we'll see what happens. You know, we'll see what happens. Next game we got here is the Cleveland Browns get smacked around by the Arizona Cardinals, 37-14 at home, no less. I thought this game was in Arizona because of there was an afternoon game, but no, it was in Cleveland. So Cleveland got embarrassed in Cleveland, which is rough. Baker Mayfield, who as of right now, he's hurt right now. And they've got a Thursday night game, so Case Keenum might be starting this game. Hell is that?
That was me. That was my ringer. My ringer went off on my laptop.
I thought it was my phone blowing up. So Baker Mayfield threw for 234, 2 touchdowns and an interception before he got hurt. Kareem Hunt, before he got hurt as well, had 66 yards rushing. Peoples-Jones had a nice little Hail Mary catch there at the end of the first half, but he had 4 catches, 101 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Odell Beckham had a decent game with 5 catches for 79 yards. On defense, Clowney and Garrett had sacks. It just seems like Myles Garrett gets a sack every damn game.
Yeah.
But Clowney and Garrett both had sacks. There was no interceptions. For Arizona, Kyler Murray, 229 and 4 touchdowns. Connor ran for 71. Edmonds ran for 46. A.J. Green, the leading receiver, with 79 yards and a touchdown. Christian Kirk, 75 yards and a touchdown. And DeAndre Hopkins doing what he does, 55 yards and 2 touchdowns. On the defensive side, Hicks and Golden both had 2 sacks. J.J. Watt had himself a sack, and Alford had an interception. So, hey, what is there left to say about this Arizona team? The Arizona Cardinals are freaking 6-0 right now.
This team is absolutely for real. I think they have the best offense in the NFL. I mean, let's be honest. This team has weapons out the wazoo, and they just got Zach Ertz. This offense is insane. DeAndre Hopkins, I mean, come on, let's be honest. What is there not to say about this guy? I mean, this guy is insane. Arguably the best receiver in football. If I wasn't a Packers fan, I probably would say he's the best receiver in football. The Browns, they're just a little bit too beaten up, man. I think this game would have been a lot better if everyone was a little bit more healthy, and the Browns they didn't really ever get it going. Like I said, a little bit beat up. Baker Mayfield was decent in this game, throwing the ball to Donovan Peoples-Jones until he got hurt. He did have the turnovers. I think he fumbled twice, like you said, and then he threw the pick or whatever. Kyler Murray was good. He looked precise in this game. Didn't quite have an MVP-like game, but he did look really good in this game.
4 touchdowns.
How many yards did he throw for?
229.
I mean, he didn't look like the MVP. Now the yards or the touchdowns were there, but watching him, it wasn't like this guy was dazzling me or anything like that. I'm not saying it hurt him in his MVP chances. It's not that he looked bad. I think he looked great. He just didn't.
He's the front runner for sure.
Oh, 100%. Like that did not hurt his chances throwing 4 touchdowns and nearly 250 yards. But this game was out of hand early. It was a decent comeback effort, but once Baker Mayfield kind of started getting a little hurt, it was like, seemed a little bit over at that point. But good game for the Cardinals. Good game for Kyler. Like you said, he did throw the 4 touchdowns. They were awesome. This Cardinals team is scary. Scary.
Oh, and I feel bad for Cleveland because Cleveland, they've been shit on for so long. Now they've got a good team, and now everyone's starting to get hurt. I mean, Thursday night, it looks like they won't have Chubb or Hunt, and there's a possibility they won't have Baker Mayfield. But he's a gamer; he's going to play no matter what. I think
he'll definitely try to play. Yeah, he'll probably suit up, and it'll probably be like somewhere close to a game time decision.
Yeah,
man, I don't know. That is such a tough call because it's like they're playing the Broncos. It's a good team, but is it worth it? I don't know. We'll see. Because they don't want to fall below 500. If he doesn't play and they don't win, they're below 500. So,
yeah, you're right. Yeah. So that's the thing about Cleveland is they've got such a good roster, but with injuries and everything, they just Landry being out, it's going to be interesting because if the Ravens keep getting wins and the Cleveland struggling to beat Denver, they're going to be out of the mix for the division.
They're going to be good games in that division too. So,
Raul Sepulveda asked, "What do you guys think about the Desmond signing?" We talked about it a little bit earlier, but we'll give you a quick reaction. Listen, he's a veteran. He can show the young guys how to play. If he's healthy, he'll be good for the team. But I also like the way Meek Robinson and Nate Hobbs have played. And like I said earlier, Casey Hayward Jr. is now the #1 ranked cornerback in the league according to Pro Football Focus, which I bet you no one would ever thought that as a Raider fan or a Raider in general. So, when we get Trayvon Mullen everything back, we'll see how good the signing is. But right now, we need anybody that can come in and help. So it's a good signing in my opinion. Next game, which was the game of the week, Dallas goes into New England and beats them in overtime with a walk-off pass from Dak Prescott to CeeDee Lamb. On the stat side of it, New England, Mac Jones had 229, 2 touchdowns and an interception. Harris had himself 101 yards and a touchdown. Stevenson had 23 yards and a rushing touchdown. Bourne had a clutch 75-yard pass and a touchdown. Myers had 44 yards receiving, and Hunter Henry had another touchdown this week as well receiving. On the defensive side, they did not have 1 sack against, and they had 1 interception on Duggar. for the New England. Man, oh man, on the Cowboys side, good Lord, Dak Prescott throws for 445, 3 touchdowns and an interception. Oh, Gorber Raider, I don't think he's been that bad. I don't think he's been that bad. He's still young and he's super short. He's like 5'5". Not really, but he's like,
Hey, what? 5'5"?
I also think that Amik Robinson getting thrown into, he's not an outside corner, he's a slot corner, in my opinion. He's a nickel corner. So I think that once we get healthy and stuff like that, I think that he'll be really good when it comes to the nickel stuff, along with Hobbs. But back to the Cowboys game here. Elliott had 69 yards rushing, 50 yards receiving. Pollard had 41 yards rushing, 22 yards receiving. CeeDee Lamb also had 2 yards rushing, but he also had 149 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. Schultz had 79 yards. Cooper had 55 yards. On the defensive side, Gregory had 2 sacks. And Diggs had that awesome pick six. He had an awesome play with the pick six, then he had a bonehead play with that touchdown. So kind of leveled itself out. But, like I said, Dak Prescott to CeeDee Lamb, what a game.
Yeah, I mean, Dak Prescott absolutely balled out in this game. He looked a little timid and indecisive early on in this game, like he didn't know where to throw the ball to, like he didn't know who he wanted to throw the ball to, but ended up showing up. Dallas showing how good that they are. I think this team is arguably a Super Bowl contender. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Cowboys in the Super Bowl. I'm not picking them to go or anything, but I wouldn't be surprised if they showed up there. New England shows that they can be competitive, but they've got a long way to go still. This isn't a great team. I don't think it's a playoff team at all, but they show that they can be competitive against these really good teams. Bill Belichick, obviously, arguably the greatest coach to ever exist. It was a very wild game down to the stretch, a good game down to the stretch, and was excited to see this game as well. This was the other game that I was able to watch this past weekend. But great game, good win for Dallas. And a tough loss for the Patriots. Would have been huge if they got this win, but a tough loss for the Patriots. Good win for the Cowboys. Mac Jones, he definitely looked like a rookie in this game, but a very good rookie in this game, even though he had the interception thing. But good game, good win for the Cowboys.
Yeah, I mean, the Cowboys have really surprised me on offense, and their defense has actually done okay, especially Diggs. Diggs is playing like a defensive MVP right now. I think he's got 7 interceptions in 6 games.
I think he has, he's got 1 more than there are games, and he has a pick every single game.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's crazy. But, hey, I did not expect this from Dallas, but, hey, you're wrong in your predictions sometimes. So, good for them. And then the Patriots are a year away with Mac Jones. They're a year away. The defense is okay. Don't know why they got rid of Gilmore, but then again, they traded with Gilmore, and then CeeDee Lamb torches him for 150. That would have been the guy Gilmore would have been covering. So it just doesn't make sense. But in Belichick, they trust. That's all it is. In Belichick, they trust. Oh, he's talking about Amik Robinson.
I was reading that. I was like, wait, what?
I didn't know that that would be such a hot subject. And you know what? I think it's because he struggled on the outside is why they brought in Desmond Trufant, because he's just, and there you go. Jeff Garrison brought up a good point. He did shut down Mike Williams when he had to, and he did do that. That's true, because I had him on fantasy and I wanted to kill him. If we were going to lose, at least give Mike Williams some stats, Next game we got was another OT game, because we had, 4 this week or 3 this week?
Yeah,
should have 4 if the Bills coach had a brain in his head. But the Seattle Seahawks lose to the Steelers 20-23. The Seattle Seahawks are now 2-4 with with Geno Smith being in there. You don't expect him to do that much, but still, he had 209, 1 touchdown. Collins had 101 yards and a touchdown. Metcalf had 58 yards receiving, and Dillsley had a receiving touchdown. On the defensive side, they had 0 sacks and 0 interceptions. You're not going to win games like that. Pittsburgh, Big Ben threw for 229 and a touchdown. No, it says he did get sacked once. So who did it? Nope, does not tell me. Never mind. Big Ben threw for 229 and a passing touchdown. Harris ran for 81 yards. He also received for 46 and a touchdown. Johnson had 71 yards receiving. And Freiermuth had 58 yards receiving. On the defensive side, TJ Watt had 2 sacks. Highsmith had a sack and a half. Wormley had half a sack. And there was 0 interceptions. This was an odd game. I'm not going to lie to you. This was an odd game, but turned out to be okay. You know, I didn't think Pittsburgh was going to crush them. I knew Pittsburgh would probably win, but not a bad game.
Yeah. Big Ben in this game actually had one of his best games of the year. And he didn't really play that great, but he was fine in this game. I still think that he's done and he's finished. This is probably it for him. Geno Smith wasn't greatly protected in this game. He did get sacked a bunch, but I think that he did do fine to a certain extent given the expectations. The Steelers were on from the jump. They looked good in the first half. They were weirdly stagnant in the second half. The Seahawks ran the ball really, really good to force the comeback. But TJ Watt in that overtime was just huge for Pittsburgh. Good win for the Steelers. Tough loss for the Seahawks. Their next games without Russell Wilson are going to be mad important because with him, I don't think that they're that great of a team. But without him, they're going to need to get some wins here and there. This was a game that they should have won, could have won. They needed to win this game.
Yeah, it's tough when you got a backup quarterback in there. And we all know Geno Smith's reputation, but he didn't do that bad. You know, it was awful. But still, you gotta if you're that close with a team in Pittsburgh traveling cross country, you gotta win that game, and it sucks that they didn't. But Seattle season might be a little bit in doubt now going forward.
They definitely
they're always the comeback kids, you know, and it's just we'll see what happens. Finally, Monday Night Football with one of the weirdest decisions ever by a coach. Did you watch the game at all?
No, that jet lag hit me really hard last night. I went to bed pretty early.
So did you know what happened, though, in the fourth quarter with the last drive?
I woke up, and since my buddy is a big Titans fan, I kind of want to rub it in his face because I thought the Bills had won. So I went and looked at it, and I was like, oh, what? What happened? Yeah, no, that was crazy. That was bizarre.
For him not to go for a field goal and try
run that play, oh, God.
But you know what? It's funny because I think that's a coach that knows that division is his already. Little cocky there. You know what I'm saying?
I think that had some play into it. Like, hey, this is a big time game. Everybody's watching. Let's show everybody.
They're not gonna beat us. The Dolphins aren't going to beat us. We've already beaten them, and we're going to beat. You know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just, to me, that's you go for the points, and that was one of the biggest things for me about the John Gruden. John Gruden would go for it, and it's like, dude, go for the points. Doesn't matter if it's in the first, second, third, or fourth quarter. If it's points that you know, if you're on the fucking 3-yard line, it's a really small chance your kicker's gonna miss it.
Right.
You just go into overtime and try to win that way, you know. But Derrick Henry was really tough to stop this game, so maybe he was thinking that. I don't know. But so yeah, Bills wise, Josh Allen threw for 353, 3 touchdowns and an interception. There really wasn't any rushing stats whatsoever. Sanders had 91 yards receiving. Diggs had 89 and a touchdown. Beasley had 88 and a touchdown. And Sweeney had himself 1 catch for 1 yard and a touchdown. 1-1-1. On the defensive side, they had 0 sacks, which is just not good. And Poirier had an interception. On the Tennessee side, Tannehill had 216 and an interception, but he also had a rushing touchdown. King Henry had 143 and 3 touchdowns. A.J. Brown had 91 yards. Julio Jones had 59 yards and probably one of the best catches of the year already. Landry had 2 sacks. Simmons had 1 sack. And Byard had an interception. Listen, this is my first thing I want to say. If Derrick Henry gets going, that team is deadly.
100%. An unpopular opinion, Derrick Henry, MVP. I know we're talking about Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray's been great. Derrick Henry, this season, the start that he's having, the season that he's going to end up having, Derrick Henry is going to end up being the MVP this year. Hopefully. My vote is for Derrick Henry. But
260 yards more than the next closest person.
Yeah, it's insane. And the other weapons that the Titans have, they played really good too. Exciting game from start to finish. The Titans, they weren't scared of the mighty Bills, showing how good that they were. Ryan Tannehill, he wasn't big in this game, but he was huge in the moments that it mattered, converting on big third down plays in this game. Josh Allen didn't really play up to the MVP level that we're putting him at this point. But it wasn't a bad game for Josh Allen. It really boils down to what was the coach thinking in that last. I mean, I think they could have ran a better play. At least they could have ran a better play. I mean, you're going quarterback sneak. I get it. Your quarterback is huge. He's strong. He's mobile. So it's not like he's going to have a hard time getting 2 yards. But really, I don't like that play call. I don't hate the decision. I'm not in love with it. I would have taken the safe bet and kicked the field goal. But really, everything about that I just didn't like. But good win for the Titans. Important win for the Titans, especially since the Colts won. They're pretty much locking up their division at this point. The Colts, like I said, they've had a tough start to their season. The Titans have actually had a pretty decent start to their season. So, yeah, it was a good win for the Titans, an important win for the Titans.
Yeah, I mean, it's just as the Bills, I mean, that's the only thing I can think of is that the Bills coach is like, well, we're going to win the division regardless. But you don't know that. And wouldn't you want the number 1 overall seed? I would say this. For me as a head coach, I would not want the number 1 seed because I hate those off weeks.
Right.
You know, you don't know what your team is doing. You can tell them what to do, but they're not going to do it, most of them. So to me, it was, what are you thinking? But then again, he's got such a big lead in the division that it's not like he's, you know what I'm saying? And the Patriots aren't going to catch up to him. Every team in the division lost.
Yeah, so why not be a little risky? I just don't like the ball. The decision I'm 50-50 on. The play call, I'm like, just be more creative than a quarterback sneak, especially since I think the Titans kind of knew that was coming. Once he kind of got under center, they're on clog it up.
Yeah, of course. 6'7" quarterback trying to do QB sneak is going to get it most of the time. But if you stack everybody in there, it's not going to happen. But that's just what it is. So, all right, guys, it's another good week of NFL football. Thank you guys for watching.
They're flying by, man. It makes me kind of sad.
It's week 6 of 18 weeks, but still, we're a third of the way there already. So thank you guys for watching. Do us a favor while you're watching. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel. Also go over to Mykel Sports and subscribe to his channel as well. Also, you can check us out every week, either Monday or Tuesday. But I think we're going to start doing it just on Tuesdays. But we've got to decide that. If not, we'll see you guys next week. Thank you guys so much for watching. Mike, let them know where they can find you and go ahead.
Yeah, guys, as always, find me obviously on YouTube at Mykel Sports, my Instagram at Mykel Sports _YouTube, and my Twitter at Mykel Sports. Thank you all so much for watching.
He does nude selfies. They're nice. Yeah, they're nice. I said he does nude selfies. They're nice.
Yeah, I do nude selfies also on my OnlyFans at Mykel Sports. I do the same thing on my YouTube. It's the same stuff. It's just shirtless. So but y'all make sure to subscribe. Shout out to, I think that says Lincho, talking about some Oregon Ducks. Yeah, the Raiders and the Chargers have an Oregon quarterback, so that's pretty cool. And yeah, thank y'all for watching this video or live.
Yeah. We'll see you guys next week. Enjoy your week. We'll see you later.